Hey Patreon, this is Meany with Bam's Tactical. So this is part 4 in our Preppers Checklist series. Today we're talking about everybody's sexiest category, and that is personal protection. So I'm actually going to be talking about firearms today and the bare minimum accessories that you should have. Now remember, this is part 4. That means you should not be doing any of this until you've got water, food, and shelter taken care of. Right? You have nothing to protect really until you have those. Right? You're just a refugee with a gun, and you go walking into a FEMA camp, they're going to take the gun. All right? You need the water, you need the food, and you need the protection before, the shelter before you get the protection. So, it looks like a long list here. It's all of this, but it's really just the basics you need for a rifle and a sidearm to be effective. So, the first thing you need is some form of box magazine fed semi-auto rifle. In my opinion, that's what you want. So guys, I'm not saying that you have to have an AR-15 or an AK. Right? If you've got a 22 long rifle, if you got some kind of Ruger, you've got a Mini 14, if you have some kind of pistol caliber carbine, something like that, it would work. If you have a box fed type bolt action, that would work. This is just the best option for personal protection. All right, it's not the best option for hunting, it's not the best option for close quarters necessarily, but it's the best all around type of gun for personal protection. So I would suggest either an AK-47 pattern rifle or an AR-15 pattern rifle. Now you can go 308, you can go AR-10, you can go M1A, one of the G3 clones. Those would all work as well. Personally, I went with the AR-15 because this is America and we have tons of spare AR-15 parts. We have tons of spare AR-15 magazines. The ammo is relatively plentiful. I know in Africa for a while, that ammunition was worth more than an AK, that they had more AKs than they had full mags. So that is something to think about. What are other people in your group, in your area, what are they buying? What do they have? Do you have some kind of commonality between you and your friends and family? And whenever somebody asks this, I suggest an AR because that's what I have. So if you need to borrow ammo or magazines, I can only help you out if you have an AR. So once you get the gun needs some very specific things before you can consider it a self-defense weapon. Those very specific things are, you need a sling. A sling is for protection or retention as much as it is for aiming and ease of carry. When you have a sling on and you have to go hands-free, right, to manipulate a door or do a weapons switch or anything like that, you want to be able to retain your weapon. A sling is necessary. It is not optional. Get you a sling. Number 2 is iron sights. All right, you need a set of sights that are basic, no batteries required, no tritium to wear out, no zero to get knocked off because you ding it or something, like iron sights. All right. Guys, I would rather you spend $100 on a set of iron sights than $100 on a red dot and not have iron sights. I've bought some cheap red dots in my life. Like I said, this series is about my path to where I've gotten to now. And I started off with some cheap Amazon red dots that were made in China, and I ended up throwing one of them out and giving one of them away because they were just trash. I think I actually gave away 2 and threw away 1. But you get what you pay for. Buy once, cry once. Expect to pay half of the MSRP of your rifle on a good optic. So if you spend $1,000 on your rifle, expect to pay $500 for a good optic. I'm sorry, but that's really where it is. The top name brands, the Aimpoints, the Trijicons, the EOTechs, they aren't your $100 sights. And they are your top brands for a reason. All right? But do not sacrifice these other things and your food and water and your shelter to go buy you a $1,000 gun and a $1,000 sight. Get those other things first. Get these other things first. Get the iron sights first. Then, if you have money left over, get you a nice optic of some sort. All right, the next thing you need is you need a white light. All right, some form of white light attached to your rifle, because if you can't see it well enough to know what it is or who it is, you should not be shooting at it, legally or morally. All right, so a white light is necessary as well. Sling, white light, and iron sights. All right, moving on from there, now that we have our weapon set up so that it's safe and efficient to use, we need something to shoot through it. And the whole purpose of getting a magazine-fed semi-automatic rifle is to have other magazines to reload it with. So that's next on our list. I suggest that each primary firearm per person has 7 spare mags for Tier 1. So we're in Tier 1 now, so if you and a buddy or you and your wife each have a rifle, then you should each have 7 magazines for that rifle. So I've got some options here. I would suggest all of these to anybody. I don't really use these anymore because I've moved out of the suburbs, but these little metal 10 round mags were great for bench shooting. I'd use them to sight in my rifle. These Daniel Defense 32 rounds are awesome because you could download them by 2, keep 30 in there, and it's super easy to load, super easy to put in on a closed bolt, and they're really durable and they're very slim. I really like that, so they're easy to pack away. Really like these Daniel Defense ones. They're not cheap, but I really like them. Of course, you've got your GI mags. I've got mine labeled by different colors of duct tape, but these are just plain old metal GI mags. Some of these are really old and they still work great. Guys, notice all of my magazines are loaded, but my rifle, don't worry, it is unloaded, so you don't have to worry about any kind of issues. I will not be loading the rifle during this video. Moving on. All of my magazines are loaded because you won't find a study that says having loaded magazines wears out the spring. What wears out the spring is using your magazines. The more you shoot them and reload them, the more the spring gets wore out. So leaving them loaded in between shooting them does not. So why have a magazine that's not loaded? All right, next we've got a Gen 2 Magpul mag. Again, these things are awesome. They work great. They got a kind of fat base plate here, so they're easy to grab out of a pouch. 30 rounds, download them to 29 or 28, and they're real easy to load. And I also have a Gen 3 Magpul with the window. These things are nice. The follower's not always exact, but it's good. It's nice to see about where you're at. But honestly, after you shoot for a while, you can grab a mag and kind of guess within 2 or 3 rounds how many are in there. You start to learn the weight of your magazines as they're full and partially empty. Here we go. We've got a 40 round Magpul mag. I actually like these for my plate carrier because they stick out a little bit more, so I can get a full hand grip on there and I don't have anything hanging off. Like some people like get some loops or something that they can grab it, but mine is real tight. Like it's pressed up against there, so I really like to get that full hand grip to pull it out. I'll do a video on my gear when we get to Tier 2. For Tier 1, all we need is some basic type of pouch to carry our magazines. This is what I would suggest, something like this, just a Condor. It can hold our basic magazines in it, our basic rifle magazines here, right? It'll hold all different types. It'll hold the regular GI, it'll hold the Magpul 30s with the bungee retention, and you can even throw in a Magpul 40, and you won't be able to get the bungee over it, but it will sit in there good enough for you to use. Like so. So these things are great, they're cheap, they're MOLLE on the back, but if you run it through one of these bottom deals here, it'll fit on a belt just fine, so you don't need MOLLE to attach it to, or you could get you a cheap little chest rig and strap it to the front of the chest rig. The other thing about it is we only have to buy one to hold both our primary and secondary, and I'll get more to our secondary here in a second, but it does hold our secondary in there as well, and you could put a flashlight or a multi-tool or something in there if you didn't want to put your secondary magazines in there. So something cheap like this is a great starter, right? You don't need the latest and greatest whiz bang awesome pouch carrier to start off. And you don't need the greatest magazines or the greatest optic to start off. Like I said, you get entry level stuff. It's entry level for a reason. You'll learn what you like, and then you can make another purchase. So moving on to the sidearm. And again, guys, I am unloaded. This is just a Glock 19. Any kind of pistol that is magazine fed, semi-auto, would work great for you. It could be 45, it could be 9, it could be 40. That's your choice. I personally like 9mm. I have a whole video on why I chose the Glock 19 that you can go watch on my YouTube channel. But with every pistol, you need a magazine or a holster. I suggest for tier 1 that you get an inside the waistband holster, because right now we're talking about more of the natural disasters, the short term, 30 to 60 days, and we're not going weapons hot, carrying our AR with our plate carry out in the front yard just because a hurricane came through. All right. With an inside the waistband holster, you can carry concealed and nobody needs to know. All right. So you can throw your magazines, spare magazines in your pocket, put this inside your pants, and nobody will know that you have it on. This is my favorite. This is a Bravo concealment holster here. I don't recommend it because they don't make it anymore. Bravo Concealment has moved away from this pattern. If you like this kind of pattern where we have this slight cant forward with belt loops, NSR Tactical makes ones like this. My wife has one for her Glock 19. Alright, just like with the rifle, we need some magazines. Glocks are pretty simple. I just have a bunch of Glock 15 round magazines, but Glock does make a 33 round magazine if you really wanted a big boomstick here. 33 rounders. They work. They stick out crazy far. So don't expect to conceal it, but hey, they're an option. Alright, so after we have a magazine pouch to carry our primary and secondary magazines, we have 5, forgot to mention that, but 5 magazines for our secondary, 7 for our primary. Now we have to have a way to maintain these weapons. And like I said, this is entry level type stuff. So you could do something very basic like a bore snake. Now the problem with a bore snake is it does have a caliber specific size. This is a 30 caliber bore snake, so this would work great for my Glock 19, but it would not go through my AR. So you'll need a couple of bore snakes, one for each type of caliber, and then all you need is some lubrication and some solvent. Right, the solvent for the barrel, the lubrication to make sure it's running correctly. And there's all kinds of videos online about how to clean your weapons. Personally, I don't use gun oil. I use grease, but that's for a different video. So you just need a very basic cleaning kit at this point because, again, we're talking short term. When we get to tier 2, we'll want more cleaning supplies. All right, the next thing is we want a minor spare parts kit. They sell little kits online. You can find them, just small spare parts kits for the #1 things that break on your weapons. I actually have a big one for my Glock and a big one for my AR, so I didn't have something to show you, but just the basic spare parts kits. And lastly, we need ammunition. All right, so this right here is about 500 rounds of 9mm. You can see it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. That's what I suggest, 500 rounds for your secondary, and about 1,000 rounds of your primary. So this right here is actually 1,000 rounds of 223. And the way I store it is on these stripper clips with a mag loader. You just throw this on the top of the mag, set it down inside like so, and you press it down and it puts all 10 rounds into the mag real quick. It makes it real easy for me to know exactly how many rounds I have left because I can just count these clips and times 10, that's how many I have. And they're real easy to load. So 1,000 rounds for primary, 500 rounds for secondary, and that's my suggestion for tier 1. Again, this is entry level, basic stuff. Don't go too crazy with it. Make sure that you've completed all of section 1, the water, all of section 2, the food, all of section 3, the shelter, before you break into this section. This is where I see most prepper type people go wrong. So they spend way too much time and way too much money on this before they start working on everything else. And it's okay to have some of these, and maybe you started here and that's what got you interested in prepping, but don't keep going. Make sure you've got your food and water first. So get this basic stuff. It's just a basic way to carry it, a basic way to shoot it, a basic way to clean it, and a basic amount of ammo off to the side. After this, we still need to complete Tier 1 and move on to Tier 2 of food and water before we come back to this. Alright, but just saying, don't fall for that trap. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. Let me know what kind of weapons y'all are using. You know, are you using an AK pattern? Are you using an AR pattern? What's your favorite type of caliber to carry? What's your favorite carry gun? Let's talk about it, because these are the fun ways to learn, right? You can't afford to buy every gun, but you can talk to somebody who has one. If you have any questions, leave them below. Like, share, subscribe, all the things. And next video is going to be on trauma. If you have something that can poke holes, you've got to have something that plugs holes. So that'll be the next video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.